Discipline versus motivation.
I did it one time and I fell in love with it. The competition side of things, how much it was like just a different beast.
I train Krav Maga, which is primarily a self-defense, and I think that one of the weaknesses that I've seen with Krav Maga is a lack of that.
I really respect and appreciate every style.
And I've found two things that have sharpened me the most in my training and skill set has been...
There's no quick way to get good at martial arts. Enjoy the ride, man.
Yep.
Maybe I might.
Welcome to Catalyst Convos. Welcome to Catalyst Convos. We can use both of those.
Honestly, yeah, one of those will work.
I like the second one. It was more energetic. Welcome to Catalyst Combos.
I'm your host, David Birdman.
This is my pain in the ass sidekick, Dan. Shut up, bitch.
We're gonna take you on an adventure in this conversation. Yeah,
You're
so,
I'm in the background. You're so stupid. Take you on an adventure. I always thought outtakes were one of the best things to add to movies and or shows.
Yes.
And there's so much genuine like dumbness out of those.
Genuine humor.
Yeah. I laugh so hard at the outtakes.
Yeah,
It's so good.
it's good stuff. Okay, well, I guess we're live. So just a kind of a introduction to what we're doing today. So we're going to go over some questions. We have a community chat here at Catalyst that we take questions from our members, and so we're going to start off with like a Q&A section, and then we'll move into a conversation about self-defense and range sports. I tend to veer more on the self-defense side. Dan has been training in more range sports for this entire time with cross-training in self-defense, and then I cross-train also in more competitive styles such as Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. So it'll be a fun conversation. We each have kind of our pillars of expertise, and then we have our kind of side quests off of those.
Yeah, it's interesting that we both have experience in both and the perspectives that we could share.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
But first, I think our question today is from Matt, and it was about discipline versus motivation, and how do you keep training? I think that this is, kind of a really valid question for everybody. No matter how long you've been training, it's easy to fall off the bandwagon, get less and less consistent. Yeah. So I know that since the birth of my daughter, like it's been hard for me to find, not time, but just the energy and the motivation to go and do workouts, stuff like that, like combined with a business. So how do you balance that?
Man, I tell you, I feel like this stuff kind of like your lack of motivation and drive and your motivation are like determined on the season that you're in your life. Because we all know like life is a thing and it gets in the way sometimes. And personally for me, like when I was younger, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it no matter what. I can train, I can, hang out with people and do what I need to do and maintain my lifestyle and do what I need to do and train at the same time and not get any sleep. Like sleep at that point didn't matter. But I also feel like, as you get older, like you have to find reasons why to be motivated, right? It causes us to dig a little bit, right? Yeah. So for example, like, your daughter, right? That right now, that's a reason for you to not, because you're so busy. However, you can completely shift that perspective and be like, I need to be physically fit and ready to go I need to protect my family, right? Yeah. So I think it's all in a matter of finding the motivation. And then within that, right, during that period of motivation to continue to go on, we have to establish our discipline and staying consistent with it.
Yeah, and I think that there's like ebbs and flows to that. Sometimes I'll train more, sometimes I'll train less, but I think it's important. Number one is there has to be something else anchoring you to it besides just brute discipline. I've never found that brute discipline lasts very long.
It's not sustainable.
Well, to me, there is a finite amount of willpower that you can exercise in life. Yeah. You can flex it, you can grow it, but there's a finite amount of it. Some people are experts at really pushing the extent of their willpower, and other people don't exercise it at all. And I think that trying to push that boundary is is good. But if you're trying to exercise willpower in every single area of your life and just brute forcing it, like diet, then exercise, and then time with the family, and all this stuff is just willpower, like there's no joy in any of it,
Yeah, it's a job.
you're going to really, crash and burn on that.
Yeah.
So same with your career.
Yeah.
Like if you have a really hard career that you have to drag yourself to every single day and exercise a ton of willpower to get to that career, it's going to be harder to willpower a workout and a diet at the same time.
Yeah. Because
Much
you're just compounding difficult things on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
And think about this too. Like you're motivated to train and hit this diet and do whatever you need to do, but you also have to attack it in a baby step approach too. Some people want to attack it in this like, oh, I'm starting right off 7 days a week. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to run 3 miles, every other day, and then I'm going to up it to 9 miles next week. Like they go at it at this extreme, and it's very challenging to attack it that way at the beginning, right? You think about like when we started training, right?
Yeah.
We didn't train 6 days a week. We didn't like spend hours and hours and hours in the gym perfecting our craft until we got hungrier for it and we were able to carve out the time for it.
Well, and these things compound on each other. Like, so when I'm thinking about that willpower aspect, if I can do something that I radically enjoy and there's people there that I enjoy being with, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to get to that place and do that thing.
Yeah.
I think that's why there was advice that was given, and it was, yeah, you can go to $10 a month Planet Fitness, or you can pay $200 a month and go to a premium gym with a smaller amount of people, with people who are all committed. There's a monetary investment, which means something in your brain.
Yeah.
2, the people that you're going to meet there are much more invested and higher quality people that you would like to form relationships with and are there for a lot of the same purposes. So I think that's a huge part of it, is what you're willing to invest in that. And what you're willing to invest says a lot about your priorities. And there has to be pillars. For instance, I'm going to train martial arts. I'm going to lift. I'm going to run. Then I'm going to go on a hike every couple of weeks. Then I'm going to go camping. I'm going to do all this stuff, right? Well, no, that'll come in seasons.
Yeah,
like you
you
might
gotta
have
be realistic about it,
seasons
yeah.
where you're hitting all that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it'll just whittle down to the bare basics. Like I got to get moving 2 days a week
Yeah.
for like certain
Yeah.
phases of life. And having pillars, and martial arts has been the pillar for me. It helps me with all the rest of my fitness and keep it in line,
Yeah.
and helps me direct it.
Yeah.
Because if I'm getting my ass kicked in a certain aspect of my craft and of my trade, it educates me in where I need to spend time fitness wise.
Where you're lacking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like if guys are just rolling me over and I can't keep up and I'm just being flipped around, I can't hold grips. Well, I might need to spend a little bit less time running, more time, hitting the weight room.
Yeah.
And if my endurance, like I'm gassing out at the end of 5-minute rounds grappling, I might need to invest in some slow zone 2 based cardio, like twice or 3 times a week. Yeah. And also this comes down to a lot of genetics. Like what can your body, what kind of volume can you tolerate? Yeah. And that's a genetic thing. You have to find that for yourself. So some people are animals and they can go 3 days a week, like they're very resistant to inflammation. So it takes them a lot of effort to actually see results.
Yeah.
Then other people, like me, for instance, I have a very low tolerance for inflammation. So I get super inflamed very easily, but that means that I need a lower dose of exercise to actually have an impact.
Yeah.
So I only need 2 days a week of like weight training. Some people need 5. And so you really have to find these things out. And I've spent a lot of money and invested in finding that stuff out. But
and that was something that you did like through blood work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like genetic testing. So because I had other health issues that I was trying to sort out, things like that.
Yeah, and it's like also like with motivation and being disciplined, like the motivation factor, you got to think too, like even if you get 1 or 2 things in during the week, like you got to celebrate that sometimes, man, because like we're talking about it, like life is challenging. There are a lot of things that are thrown on your plate, and people want to hang out with you and spend time with you, and that's going to take away from you doing what you want to do. And so it's important to also like celebrate the fact that you actually had an opportunity to to do something.
Yeah.
If it's something for 30 minutes a day, 1 hour a day, but there's a lot of value in just accomplishing that task with the way with the stuff that we have to do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, and if you listen to every single health and wellness podcaster, your entire job could be just trying to work out and recover.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to sauna. I need an ice bath.
That's how extensive it is.
Yeah, I need to get 9 hours of sleep each night, and then I need red light therapy before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Then I need to do zone 2 cardio. Oh, I need to train martial arts. I need to weight lift 4 times a week. Then I need to do zone 2 cardio. Then I need to do high intensity cardio. And it's
First of all, that sounds like a lot, and then secondly, it sounds expensive.
right. And
Right?
And so
So-
you have to pick things.
Yeah.
And it's like what's valuable to
Yeah.
you? What are your highest tier values?
Yeah.
And for me, a highest tier value when I'm trying to look at fitness is, am I going to enjoy going to the place that I go to get this done? And do I enjoy the activity
Yeah.
itself?
Yeah.
That's why martial arts has always stuck. It's been the one thing that I've done consistently for 18 years now.
Yeah.
It's fun for me.
And it's the same thing for me like that. I do traditional weightlifting, I run, and I do all this other stuff. But like my favorite thing in the world is to train martial arts, whether it be hitting the bag, hitting the pads, sparring, teaching it, like just being involved in that
Yeah.
realm. And as long as you're doing something that's physical, one, but two, has some like mental growth in there too, like some emotional testing, right?
Mhm.
Test your emotions a little bit. And also you're doing it together with other people.
Yeah.
Like you don't really need much, man, to be
Yeah.
fulfilled.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
No, and I think that if you're busy and you're struggling for motivation, narrow it down,
Mm-hmm.
pick your thing,
Yep.
and then as life gives you breaks, expand,
Mhm.
and then as life takes things away, takes time away, contract back to your core and expand out.
Yep.
And you're constantly playing that, but always have a pillar
Yep.
that's there that I do something, I do this 2 days a week, 3 days a week,
Yeah.
even if it's a walk in the
Yeah.
morning around Mount Trashmore or something, or you just go through your neighborhood, like take a walk, put on a weight vest. That's what you can do.
Yeah.
But I would recommend getting into a class, and I'm sort of biased because I
Yeah.
teach them, but
Right.
I would totally. But I've seen people get great results and stick with classes here at my gym longer than any of them have ever stuck with a weightlifting routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that was a good question.
yeah, it was a good question, and it's something that I think that everyone struggles with. So
He's not alone.
no, he's not. Matt, that was out to you. And now we're going to dive into our main topic today, which is self-defense and range sports. Well, and kind of a branch off of this main topic is, how do you pick a gym that really suits what you're going for? Because I think a lot of people, they get into martial arts and they're like, I want to do self-defense.
The
And that-
bug hits him.
And that's a really big, broad topic. You could talk about firearms, knife training. You could talk about vehicular problems, like home defense.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly broad range and skill set. So where do you see like the intersection of competitive styles of martial arts with self-defense?
Man, so I started off doing self-defense, like
Yeah.
for martial arts for self-defense at 10 years old. I did it because my dad was tired of me being a pain in the butt in the house, and I was being like undisciplined, not doing well in school, and he just put me in martial arts because he thought discipline,
Yeah.
right? I need to help my kid. Greatest thing he ever did for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, and as time went on, the intersection for me, right, hopping into the like competition side of things was, I felt like I kind of knew everything in the self-defense art that I was training,
Yeah.
right? So I felt like I had peaked, and there wasn't anything else other than competing that I hadn't done.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so why don't I just give this a try? Because I didn't want to compete. Like I just wanted to train self-defense. teach it and this, that, and the other, but there was an element missing that I felt like that I really needed to add to my, I guess, repertoire to say at least I did it one time.
Yeah.
Right. I did it one time, and I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I fell in love with like the competition side of things and how much it was like just a different beast.
Yeah.
Completely.
It is.
But we talk about like the intersection, right?
Yeah.
How can a competition style fighter excel in a self-defense scenario and vice versa,
Yeah.
right? So competition style fighter can excel pretty well in a self-defense scenario because if you think about it, a competitor has the mentality of controlling the ring or controlling the situation, right? So there's this level also of like stress that they don't worry about because you've been in the ring before, which is a very like stressful and chaotic environment, right?
Yeah.
And we've heard this before, like, the one that's relaxed and chill in a stressful and chaotic environment is typically the one that kind of wins that scenario,
above.
right? Rises above.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like in the self-defense world, right? Unless you have physically trained to get beat up, right? In a self-defense scenario, like you don't know what that feels like until you get there.
Well, what we're talking about right now is we're talking about the pressure.
Yeah.
Fighters have been pressure tested. Much more than some purely self-defense styles would go.
Yeah.
A lot of people who do fights, it is full contact.
Yeah.
Like you're going until someone either gets knocked out or until the rounds end.
Yeah.
And then a winner's declared.
Mhm.
You understand the adrenaline dump that happens and what happens in fight or flight situations. And I think that's a really positive experience because oftentimes, and I'll see this because I train Krav Maga, which is primarily a self-defense. And I think that one of the weaknesses that I've seen with Krav Maga is a lack of that, a lack of pressure testing. And what I mean by a lack of pressure testing is even if you're training hard, you're training with your friends at a high level, you know everybody in the class.
Yeah.
There isn't that anxiousness of wanting to do well anymore because you're kind of complacent inside of your environment.
Mhm.
And because there's no competitions, it's like, so what am I going to do? There's no self-defense competitions. So it's like, how do I test my skills against other people in other gyms? You really don't.
You just go out and pick fights.
Yeah, go to bars. Don't do that, by the way. That's a good way to get killed and arrested now. But we'll talk about that stuff later. But no, it's really hard to find new ways to pressure test. That's why I push a lot of like my advanced ranking students. You either go to seminars with guys who allow more full force kind of pressure testing stuff, or you do jiu-jitsu competitions.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big proponent of that. It's not as damaging for like older guys or stuff like that to hop in.
But it's a real good feel for how
You feel real hardcore resistance, and you get nervous because you're going out there and you're trying to compete in front of hundreds of people that now they're all not watching you, but you think they are.
Yeah.
It's like, so when you go out there,
me.
when you go out there, the adrenaline hits and you could do a 5-minute roll in your gym and then you go out there and try to compete.
Completely different.
And you're like gassed out at 2.5 minutes. Your forearms are jello and it's a completely new world.
Yeah, and that's like one of the like big things with like the competition circuit and like when I used to teach guys to compete, I would encourage them to go out and spar at other schools.
Yeah.
Like, because you're consistently sparring with the same people every night in our gym.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a lot of there's value there, but not as much as it would be if you were going to another school, and these guys don't know you.
Yeah.
They're gonna give it to you, right? They're gonna give you that real experience that you need, and I feel like another like kind of sidetrack a little bit. Another element that competition doesn't have that self-defense does is you got to think in like a competition circuit or fight or whatever the case may be. There's rules.
Yeah.
Right. There's things that you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Right. So the argument there is like, which one?
Yeah. Well, I would argue that self-defense has a ton of rules. they're always enforced by lawyers in suits afterwards.
Right afterwards.
So,
Not in the moment though.
but your actions in the moment can really harm you
Yeah.
later on down the road
Yeah.
if you're not careful. So it's really interesting because people are like, well, there's no rules in a street fight. I'm like, there actually are. It's called Virginia State Self-Defense Law.
Yeah.
And it's not enforced in the moment. No one's coming to pull you off if you don't abide by those. But the consequences can be so much more costly that you wish that you would have just taken a punch to the nose.
Yeah.
And just,
It wouldn't have been that bad.
and you know, and if that's all it was, and this was just minor assault,
Yeah.
and you just took a punch, and you're like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
instead of now you beat this dude up and elbowed him and cracked his skull and broke his orbital bone, and now he's suing you for loss of wages for, you
You're gonna
know,
lose your job,
you know,
your
and it's
house,
like,
your
and it's
family,
like,
and-
man, and it's like this compounded super quick from like, so that's something funny that I always flip on people when they always say, oh, there's no rules in a street fight. I'm like, what do you think Virginia self-defense law is all
There are
about?
none, sir.
And actually, range sports are much more permissive of what you can do to another human being inside of a ring
Oh, yeah, I never
than
thought about it from that perspective.
than self-defense law
Yeah.
is. It's like you elbow someone, that's grievous bodily harm.
You elbow somebody in the ring? Good job.
Good job, man. On the
Sometimes you'll
street,
get, like extra money for that.
yeah, exactly. Highlight of the night, you know. And then you turn it around, you do that stuff outside, and it's like that's like grievous bodily harm,
Yeah.
and that's this just below like manslaughter and you know all that other stuff, and it's like, wow. And I'll tell that to
Probably worth some
people.
time, too.
Yeah, if you're on the wrong side of it. So it's really interesting when you look at like the blind spots of each one. I would say that kind of the blind spots when you're looking for like a self-defense gym, um, to kind of differentiate between a self-defense gym and a sport fighting gym. What I tell people to look at is, do they talk about legality in class?
Mhm.
Are they concerned with disengagement?
Mhm.
And do they practice consistently with the presence of weapons?
Hmm.
And if those three criteria are not met, you're not training in a self-defense oriented gym. You're training in a ring fighting gym, which can, or a competitive style gym, which can have large ramifications towards self-defense, but also quite a number of blind spots
Yeah.
too. Like you're building in training habits that are very applicable in a match or a competition, but might get you in trouble or leave you with a blind spot if you're training, you know, if like you're doing more self-defense styles
Yeah.
stuff and you're actually training for real life application,
Yeah.
like on the street, you know. So, and I hate to say street fighting, I'm talking about counter assault training,
Yeah.
because you shouldn't engage in street fighting, but it's, to me, it's a great way to get shot.
Yeah.
So
Everybody's got a gun now.
they do. Yeah, I know of two bar fights in the area that ended. One of them was guy was in mount, finished ground and pounding the dude. One walked off. Guy pulled his gun and shot him 7 times in the back as he walked away.
Oof.
Fucking tragic. It was all over some girl at a bar. You know,
Yeah.
like these guys have been making passes at each other for months, and
Mhm.
they just finally came to blows over it. And yeah, the guy didn't like losing like that.
Dang.
And he definitely was convicted, I think, of murder, but because the fight had ended, clear, distinct break, guy had gotten off of him, walked away.
Yeah, there was some what's the word? What's the term? Malicious intent there.
Yep,
For sure.
and just pulled the gun and popped
Yeah.
him, you know. And then there was another one at the Eagle's Nest. Two
Oh.
guys got into it in like the parking lot, fist fight, broke it up, and then the guy tried to shoot him as he walked away, missed though. But yeah,
Mm.
so yeah,
You
so
you can't be too careful nowadays. Man.
no, it's and like how it's not like back in the day. People are really lawsuit happy, and,
Oh, yeah.
and you can't just duke it out and you know and then high five
Yeah,
afterwards
you
as
breathe
easily.
on somebody the wrong way now. It's just
Yeah.
you can get like a lawsuit landed
Yeah.
on you.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, so that's what I tend to tell people to look for when they look for a self-defense gym. Are those things included as part of class structure?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big cue for me. You
Yeah.
know, so
I think it's like for me like the time that I've spent in all the gyms that I've been in, right? It's simple to identify self-defense from competition style.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mainly that the self-defense style people are worse at martial arts than
I wouldn't even say that
competition.
though. Like I wouldn't even say that. Like if that's funny. But
I'm just taking a jab at my own art.
oh man, don't though, because we were all there at one point,
Oh,
and
yeah.
doing self defense, and we got interested in competing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Some people want to hop right into competition training,
Yeah.
or compete right away, and compete or train at the competition level.
Yeah.
It's not made for everybody.
No.
I can assure you of that. So, but like you can walk. I feel like I can walk into a self defense school and just know that it's a self defense school. And what I really look for is like a high level of professionalism.
Yeah.
I look for broken up like classes.
Yeah.
In detail, like kids and adults, and then you've got different age groups and brackets and all that stuff, and levels and structure.
Yep.
Right. That is a big green light for me when I'm looking at self-defense schools. They may have a competition team, but it may be small.
Yeah.
Right. Very like hush hush. Hey, we're inviting you to be a part of our competition team. This is only for a select few.
Yeah. That's what I do here at Catalyst.
And I
have a
think,
few people that compete.
man, I honestly feel like that's the way it should be done.
Yeah.
Because like what I just said earlier, like it's not made for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And think about the effects on an individual that's going in. Let's say they've been doing self-defense for 4 years, 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And they want to try the competition team.
Yeah.
They want to try out. They want to be a part of something like that at that level and go into that type of training, right? Maybe they're just not built for it.
Yeah.
And you could have that conversation. You could say, let's try it.
Yeah.
Like, let's give it a shot.
And that's okay.
That's okay. And if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah.
But like, and you can easily identify a competition school. You walk in there, it probably is, it's very smelly. I'm just kidding. No. They don't clean up at competition schools. No, but you could definitely you could tell the vibe when you go in there. Like,
well, and and it's like, I've walked into gyms like that, and it's
there's not very many people there.
Atmosphere is very different here.
Yeah.
So.
Unless you go out to your areas that are huge in competition, like California, Florida, Austin, Tech, those areas, right? That are huge into competing.
Yeah.
And
bring a lot of talented people.
Yes. Those schools will be massive.
Yeah.
And they will have a lot of fighters.
Yeah.
Which is great, but it's very few and far between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think when you're looking at self-defense training, it does not have to. Self-defense is not something that should be learned over the course of 10 years. It has to be applicable soon, because they don't have a match date. This should be applicable as soon as they walk out of the door. Yeah. That day for your first class, and I think that's also what you kind of look for. And I love jiu-jitsu. I train that. That's my kind of side passion, or that I would say is I really enjoy training that. I understand that this is not a realistic self-defense style.
Yeah.
I don't want to roll on the ground with people on asphalt. It's not a great experience.
It's not comfortable.
Try it. And you just don't move as well when you're on asphalt. There's a ton of friction. You can't do a lot of the movements because you're just put under a ton of friction, especially if someone's on top of you.
Yeah.
But I love the art. And the art is beautiful without having to be 100% self-defense applicable.
Yeah.
There's no coverage of weapons. So if the guy is on the bottom or on the top, he pulls a knife on me while I'm doing my jiu-jitsu, what happens then? Blank spot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that when I talk about self-defense, I'm like, you don't have to be, and I think that people want to claim that their art is supreme in certain areas.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, this is the best art for this. This is the best. We're the best. It's like, you can have a beautiful art. For instance, if you love practicing Aikido, I wouldn't say that it's practical for a self-defense system.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is.
It's a great way to move.
Yeah.
Teaches you fantastic movement, fluidity, movement around people, teaches you some great intangible skills. Now, is it directly transferable as a self-defense art? I would say no.
Yeah.
But does that decrease the beauty of the art form itself?
No. And like,
You know?
I've always been like an avid proponent of every art is effective in its own way.
Yeah.
I am not like a Muay Thai, like diehard guy Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Like I love all martial arts.
Yeah.
There are just a certain few that I prefer.
Yeah.
Right, to train.
Yeah.
Right, because the way that I'm built.
Yeah.
I don't like leaving the ground. I don't like flipping. Right. I'm talking about like capoeira and stuff like that. Like I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like I just want to be on the ground and I want to, you know, move around and keep my feet there.
Not athletic enough for that.
Yeah, right. So that's a style that I think is amazing.
Oh, so beautiful.
It is. Capoeira is amazing.
incredible. You
Capoeira
want-
is amazing. Amazing.
You want to look great too.
Yeah.
Like they look super jacked,
Oh yeah.
super built,
Yeah.
ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I think Fight Science did something that they like did a study that they have the most powerful kick in any martial art
yeah.
because of all the like.
Ever to set up.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's gonna be
to
like
land
13
it.
minutes before you get it, but it's powerful.
If you land it.
Yeah, if you land
It's
it.
in a bag of wallop.
Yeah. But no, like I really respect and appreciate every style because every single one has something to bring to the table, right? And I have found throughout like my martial arts like journey, there's a lot of like hard-headedness towards other styles.
Yeah.
And not wanting to apply them to the one that you already know.
Yeah.
Like why not take bits and pieces from one style and put it in the other?
Yeah.
Like that's how JKD was built.
Yeah.
Right? Bruce Lee's art. That's how he built that style, right? And JKD is one of the most effective martial arts out there. Period.
Yeah, Krav Maga has like a similar background. It incorporates a lot of other martial arts, and it's funny. As I become more like study more and more martial arts, and I look at what works and what doesn't, I've become more and more convinced of two things: that the oldest martial arts are probably the best. They've been around the longest. So when you think about it, when you look at history, and you see Greek statues of people with boxing wraps on,
Yeah.
and then you see guys wrestling,
Yeah.
and you realize that every single warrior culture has an expression of those two arts.
Yeah.
Does not matter where in the world they are. You can add in fancy kicks to it. You can add in grappling on the ground with it. But there was two pillars, and it was for a fighting man, when fighting used to be 100% close quarters
Mhm.
and with sharp stones.
Yeah.
It was boxing and wrestling.
Yeah.
Those
Well,
were the
you've
two
seen-
expressions.
You've seen those two.
Sports, like over the course of like the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 years become like pretty prevalent in mixed martial arts. Like
Almost every UFC champion now
and they
has a
just
wrestling
box.
background.
Just box and wrestle.
Yep.
Right? Not only for like the effectiveness, but the practicality. Like it's okay. Like if this guy gets in a range close enough to me where I can punch him, I'm gonna punch him. Right? Like that range also determines whether I can get taken down or not.
Yep.
But if I keep him just far enough away and use these hands to manage that and
Yep.
control that scenario, I'm good to go.
Yep.
Right?
Kicks seem to be rather limited, so like, and they happen as the range is either closing or expanding.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, when I look at training for self-defense, can you grapple inside of a clinch,
Mhm.
and can you throw hands?
Yeah.
I think those are probably the two things that you should focus on, because then if you're used to controlling hands, you can very easily translate that into weapons-based problems.
Mhm.
It's like, guy has a gun in his hand now.
Yeah.
Okay, like I'm used to controlling hands. Now all I need to be aware of is pointing the muzzle away from me.
Yep.
As I do this.
Yeah.
Oh, guy has a knife. Okay, I need to be very focused on kind of blocking and separating space out to make sure that he can't switch hands or get two hands on it, or it doesn't come toward me. And so controlling hands, and that's what grappling is really, really good for, from either a wrestling standpoint or a jiu-jitsu perspective. If you're really good with your hand fighting, you can really start to pin people and make it very hard for them to function inside of that clinch. And And that's why like, I really see the applicability of like the wrestling stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all about hand fighting. Can I get control of the guy's hands?
Yeah.
And historically, death came from people's hands. Knives, swords was all carried in their hands. So if you could control hands,
You can control the outcome of a fight.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's what I tend to look at and see when I look at a gym. Is it's like, does it have a large stand-up component for grappling, and can they box? I think those are two huge pieces because it's so easy to plug in everything else if you know those two skills.
Yes.
And I think that's where like Taekwondo falls down, is like they can kick. That's wonderful, but hand skills are almost non-existent.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, okay, like you have a piece of it, but that piece is at a specific range.
Well, yeah, you're limiting yourself to one range.
Yes.
Is what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And that's fine in a sparring match.
Yeah, but why not? Why not be multifaceted?
Yeah.
Why not be able to control as many ranges as possible?
And if you think about it, like most encounters, if you want to talk about street altercations, they start within handshake distance.
Yeah.
You don't identify as a guy as a threat like 5, 10 feet away and then decide to flying sidekick him.
That sounds fun.
If I could do it, it'd be rather fun.
Yeah.
But most altercations start within speaking distance.
Yeah.
Or like a handshake distance.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get to extend out to a little further than that.
Yeah, post interaction. Like
Yeah.
interaction, yeah.
Or you earn that
Yeah.
throughout the fight
Yeah, with
by
a grab.
landing a hard
Yeah.
hit or something, and then you can separate and gain some range, and then maybe use a kick. But a lot of it starts off in that face-to-face, within handshake range. And so that's why the hands, because that's just at the cusp of clinch range or boxing range.
Yeah.
It can go either way. And so it's really those two arts that I really see.
I mean, if you had your choice, right? You're in a self-defense scenario like that. What are you doing first? Are you punching or are you clinching?
I'm probably throwing a strike first.
Yeah.
And
Same.
I do it before they do.
Yeah. I've been in a few self-defense scenarios like outside of like martial arts schools, and typically I would assess like body language first, and I would usually hit first.
Yeah, pre-assault indicators.
Yes.
For the industry terminology.
I'm not letting it get any further than that. Like I'm sorry. Like yes, I hit him first, but
Yeah.
this is what I observed.
Yep.
And that's why I hit him.
Yeah, I talk to my people about this all the time in class. It's if you let strangers that you don't know in areas where you could get assaulted within arm's reach, you kind of deserve to lose.
You do.
You know, because you've already set yourself up. So action is faster than reaction. If I'm already behind the curb and you are inside of wingspan on me, there's no way I'm catching up.
Yeah.
And if I take damage first, I am diminished to a point where now I'm fighting from an even lower level of competence.
Yeah, and what's not to say what that damage was?
Yeah, one could do
Was
it.
that a punch?
Was that a knife in my throat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it,
Yep.
a hammer or a tool, like whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
what extent or what kind of damage did you experience first?
Right.
Right?
And I think that this is one of those conversations where you talk about like ring fighting and self-defense. And if every time you do a drill, it's always touch fists, and then you separate, and then you work from a long range into a short range,
Yeah.
as opposed to starting close and then something happens,
Yeah.
whether a knife is pulled, whether they try to pull a gun out, and also from positions of disadvantage, like your eyes are closed, and people come up behind you and put you in holds or put a gun to your head,
Yeah.
or do stuff like that, and that, I think, it's a sucky way to train. I think that people like training competitive styles as well, like jiu-jitsu, for instance. I've never seen a black belt lose to a real blue belt. There are blue belts who've been in for a very, very long time and can beat black belts. But
Those are the sandbagging blue belts.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Competition blue belts as they're called. But I've never seen a black belt lose inside of the jiu-jitsu rule set to someone of lower skill level.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like you reach a certain skill level and you own everybody inside of your gym. It feels super good.
Yeah.
Put yourself eyes closed and someone pulls a knife out at you and now you're defending from behind the curb, and sometimes still doesn't matter.
Yeah, I go back to the like it's the whole rules thing, man.
Yeah.
Like the rules can hinder you,
Yep.
and they can make you look great.
Yeah, they can.
It gives you a false sense of security
Yeah.
if you think about it, right? And that's like I'll throw it back at you. I think self-defense is scarier than competition sports.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain level of rules that competitions have or competition sports have that
Luck
absolutely.
with self-defense.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's like I get to not pick the place.
Mhm.
I don't get to pick what armament I am carrying on me that
Right.
day.
I don't get a home crowd,
I don't get a home crowd.
right?
I
You know what I mean?
don't,
Like,
I don't get any of these advantages.
Yeah.
The other person picks the day,
yeah,
picks
the time.
picks what weapons and what friends to bring.
Yep.
That's a really
That's crazy.
That's a really shitty situation.
It is. It's terrible.
And training like that, if you train like that too much, I think it hurts your confidence.
Yeah.
You train to disadvantage
Hmm.
constantly, and I think that
Well, you're
It's hard.
you're training in a false reality.
yeah,
That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
You're training in this false reality where it's not realistic. This like the idea of one-on-one in the street is and one-on-one and fair is
almost non-existent.
is non-existent,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, that other person is also trying to survive, or
Yep.
also trying to issue malcontent against you,
Yep.
right? And in the ring, to a certain extent, there's like a level of honor, right? There's an exchange. You guys are attacking and hitting each other, this, that, and the other, and then the bell rings. You go back to your corner.
Yeah.
Like that does not exist in the street.
Yeah.
So and like I think like to kind of like I don't want to say like finish this whole like topic we're talking about, but like I truly see so much value in training self-defense first.
Yeah.
And segueing into competition if that's what
Yeah.
you want to do, right?
Well, because you have to start with the practical first,
Right. You have to have the foundation and skills down, right?
and then you fall in love with it.
Yes.
And that's what and that's what's happened to me is I started off training one in weird styles. Like there's value in traditional martial arts, but I think for me it hindered a lot of growth.
Yeah.
I learned some valuable things. Like my sidekick right now is phenomenal, but it didn't take 10 years to develop my sidekick to where it was. It would have taken like 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did take some beautiful takeaways from it, but at the same time, I was behind in a lot of other skill sets, and it was like, no, that didn't equip me. And so as I'm moving into more competitive styles, it's like, okay, like I had some work to do to get myself up to even mediocre levels of like performance, and that was after I'd been in for 10 years.
Yeah. Plus, it's fun, man. Like you get to this level where you know so much,
Yep.
and you literally are starting over.
Yeah.
You go once you segue into that competition like
Mhm.
mindset, you're starting over. Yes, you have skills, you have a foundation, but the mentality is completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. And
Yep.
I
Puts you.
it does. And I only think you can truly experience that in the training.
Yeah.
People could tell you about it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, competition training's hard, it's different. How different? You just got to be there.
Yeah.
Like you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Like how do you get better? It's like the same thing like how do you get better at sparring? You just spar.
Yep.
Right? Like there's no like secret to getting better at sparring faster. Right? You just got to do more of it.
I think because I've had these conversations with people who get stuck in training walls.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this more on a later podcast. But I don't think there's a magic formula. I think that people want to find the guru.
Yeah.
that reveals to them all their weaknesses to work on. I've never met such a person. I've met a few people who are very good instructors who can bump you up levels very quickly. But that's generally in a skill set where you have limited knowledge.
Yeah.
And they get you from terrible to kind of okay rather quickly. But then once you're kind of okay, it's a long slog
Yeah.
to get to good and then to get to amazing.
Yeah, to great. Yeah.
You know, so that's a lot of hardcore investment. And I've found that the more you invest in the training, the easier or the quicker that goes seemingly.
Right.
And there's no magic formula.
No.
It's just come in, put in the work.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the things that competition does is it makes the boring work fun again.
Right.
Because you have a reason to go do the boring work again.
Yeah.
In self-defense, the threat is kind of somewhere off in the distance.
Yeah.
It's very ambiguous. If I get assaulted one day.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a 6'4", 200 and something pound male who is not the ideal target of an assault.
You're probably not going to get encountered.
I'm probably not going to have these issues unless I go find places to go get myself in trouble.
Right.
Which at 33 with a family, I'm not doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the
what?
only way that you're running into a problem is if you cause it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do I and so how do I push myself? Well, I compete instead. Because now there's an urgency. There's something to go that gets me in shape. I'm not competing at high levels. I'm competing blue belt level in
Right.
jiu-jitsu tournaments and getting my butt kicked sometimes.
You're just going out there to have a good time, man.
I'm going out there because it motivates me.
Yeah, it's fun.
It motivates me to work on things. So I think in the upper levels of self-defense training, it's hard to find the motivation. Yes, there's the next rank test, but that's kind of, yeah, it's with your instructor, it's with people you know. You kind of know the process, but by like after you're a few years in, and you know it's gonna suck, but you know that you'll make it through.
Yeah.
And you know, but in competition, there's that very real sense of I could lose.
Yeah. All it takes is one hit.
Yeah.
Or one move, right?
One miss. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Well,
That's what I love about the competition
Side of things. Like,
Yeah.
you can be this elite level athlete. You can be amazing. You could be, your cardio could be on point. Your weight training could be on point. Your form and technique could be on point. But there's the other guy.
Yeah.
All it takes is one move or one miss.
Yeah.
Right? And why competition training and that facet of martial arts is so difficult, in my personal opinion, is because you have to be on point and sharp and crisp to ensure victory, right?
Yeah.
Because, like we said, one little opening, one little miss, or one miss, that's all it takes, man.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people, and then this is not against anybody, but I don't think there are many individuals out there that can express that kind of high level of detail in their training.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. But competition really does push you there.
It does.
Because there's that imminent sense of loss.
Yeah.
And embarrassment, and that motivates people.
Yeah.
I've started doing, when I do like more intense sessions in like my classes, is I have people gather around in a circle and have people fight in the middle.
Oh yeah.
That immediately
Heightens the intensity.
the intensity. It immediately.
Yep.
Instead of just everyone just doing their own thing, now it's like everybody's like circled around. They're watching your performance.
Yeah.
How are you gonna do? And that immediately just brings the level up a notch.
Yep.
And then you do that, and I'll go to a ShivWorks trainings, and every scenario, it is never everyone doing the scenario at once. It is a ring of people, and you're in the middle with one person.
Yeah.
And this is a bunch of strangers you don't know.
That's how real life's gonna be, man.
Yeah. And I've found that the two things that have sharpened me the most with like my training and skill sets has been doing high intensity pressure testing at ShivWorks and then doing competitions has really like put that desire in me to go and train.
Yeah.
Because while at ShivWorks, if you don't know what it is, it's a combination of wrestling, verbal techniques, but also shooting. So it's a lot of simunition rounds.
Yeah.
So you're taking simunition rounds at point blank range,
Hmm.
which is plastic paint markers propelled by gunpowder.
Mhm.
Sucks
Okay.
a lot. So you're very motivated during the training experience to do well or else. So, but that's where a lot of like my mindset towards like self-defense training has come from, and also with like the Krav Maga background, which deals a ton with like weapons problems.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's been an interesting mix of those two,
Yeah.
and then getting more recently into jiu-jitsu competitions, and it's like wow, like, this is a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a strike first, strike hard mentality when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like I'm self-defense, I'm hitting first.
Yeah.
Um,
as you should.
self-preservation, man. You know
As
what I
you
mean?
should.
Like I don't want that thing to last any longer than,
Yep.
you know, 7 to
And I
8
don't want it-
seconds.
and I don't want it to get any worse than it already is.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that kind of rounds out our topic today.
Yeah.
I think that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I just kind of like, do what you feel comfortable with, right? At the end of the
You
day,
have to
like,
enjoy it.
yeah, and martial arts, and I'll go off on this real quick. Like, think about it as a journey,
Yep.
right? And it is not a sprint. There's no, like David was talking about earlier, there's no quick like way to get good at martial arts. Enjoy the ride, man. Like there are so many cool things that you're gonna learn. There's so many great people that you're gonna encounter and
Yeah.
train with, and take some time to develop like some brotherhood and camaraderie, right? Because that is a huge element in martial arts.
I think it's the most important thing. The people that I train with consistently, I end up training because I like them as people.
Yeah.
Like my instructor Ron, I'm with him because he's a fantastic individual.
Yeah.
I go to Craig and do ShivWorks stuff because he's a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
And also they're experts at their craft, but that's not the most outstanding thing about them.
Yeah. They're also just good humans.
They're very good humans.
Yeah.
And they treat people amazingly well.
Yeah.
And there's a brotherhood that they foster
Yeah.
at their training events.
Yeah.
And I grew up like in the Lynx Academy, at Lynx Academy, and like we were the Lynx crew, man. Like we were a group of people knew who we were because we trained a certain type of way, and
Yep.
like I loved being a part of that.
Yeah.
And so like on this journey of martial arts that you're taking, right? Whether you're a beginner or you've been training for a year or two, like try to find that, establish that,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes that journey a lot easier to travel because you're doing it together with somebody, like a group of people.
Yeah. And when you're not motivated, you know your friends are going to be there.
Yeah, you're letting them down. Go to class and train with them. Like seriously,
Yep.
like there's somebody there that needs to train with me, right? Like I am, Johnny's best motivator. Like
Yep.
he needs me there.
So if you are coming to class and you're involved in a gym, this is one of the reasons why we have a group chat, is so we can talk crap to each other
Mm-hmm.
when we're not in training, or people, we're trying to get people to train. And one of the best ways to do that is for you as a member to tell another member, hey, I'm going to be here on this date
Yeah.
and we'll get to train together again.
That's it.
Yeah, but that's also like an accountability factor,
Yep.
right? And if no one holds us accountable, like we're not gonna progress at all.
And you have to get involved like that for people for the gym to actually start recognizing
Mhm.
you as an influencing member.
Yeah.
And people to know you at the gym, people to recognize you.
Yeah.
Like you have to get involved with like the community of people, and you have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And get involved in their things.
That's like life, man.
Oh,
You
yeah,
gotta put
yeah.
yourself out there.
You don't. Yep. Every time.
Yeah.
Well, again, a good conversation. I think we have fun.
Yeah, man, good stuff.